The genius of the entire academy had just awakened an S-grade power, and everyone thought nobody could possibly surpass him. Well, a few hours later, that same genius was still sitting at level 1, while our boy Alistair had somehow jumped all the way to the power of a level 7 transcendent, which is pretty ridiculous, considering the academy had literally tested Alistair that morning and found 0 talent and no superpower at all. So, how does the supposedly most useless student in school become stronger than their greatest genius in a single afternoon? Well, to find out, we have to rewind a bit. The examiner calls out the test results one by one across the school field. 1-star talent, F-grade fire control, pass. He checks the next student. 3-star talent, E-grade air control, pass. Then his voice turns cold. 1-star talent, no superpower, fail. This single test determines the entire future of every student here. Passing means becoming a transcendent. Failing means your life is completely ruined. Dimensional gates have torn open across this modern world. Terrifying monsters pour through them every single day. Only transcendents can use their powers to fight these invaders and protect humanity. Because of this, transcendents enjoy absolute status and ultimate privileges. Ordinary humans have 0 rights. They are forced into brutal hard labor just to survive. In this world, power is everything. Standing in line, one young man catches everyone's eyes. His name is Alistair Wright, long black hair, piercing crimson eyes, an unreal handsome face. While every student around him shakes with fear, Alistair remains dead calm. This test does not scare him at all. In reality, Alistair is a transmigrator from another world. He arrived here 6 years ago, at the age of 12. In this world, people awaken their powers either at 12 or 18. Alistair failed his very first test back then. But something far greater happened. He awakened a special ability, the World Travel Simulator. The system merged directly into his soul. However, it wasn't ready to activate. It required 6 whole years to gather energy and adapt to this universe. The system gave him one clear condition. It would officially unlock the moment he failed his second test at 18. To keep itself stable, it even stripped away every trace of natural power from his body. Alistair doesn't care about failing today, because his system is infinitely stronger than any awakened power. Suddenly, the examiner roars at the top of his lungs. 8-star talent, SSS grade lightning control, pass. The entire crowd instantly erupts. Hugh really is the genius of our school, another student sneers. Alistair is just a pretty face, but Hugh is the real deal. The teachers and the principal nod with deep respect toward Hugh Carlson. Hugh basks in the overwhelming praise. He turns around, casting a mocking smirk straight at Alistair. Alistair doesn't even flinch. He completely ignores him. To Alistair, Hugh is just an ordinary transcendent, while he is a system user. Right at that moment, the silence breaks. The examiner calls out his name. Alistair Wright, step onto the platform for your test. Alistair walks up to the platform with total composure. He knows he has no active powers yet. Staying polite and low profile is his smartest move. Without his system, even a newly awakened rookie could easily take his life. Standing before him is a massive crystal pillar forged from monster materials. It acts as a direct catalyst to awaken the dormant powers hidden inside humans. Alistair calmly places his palm onto the cold surface. The teachers and students hold their breath, watching with intense anticipation. After all, he is the top academic genius in the entire school. Yet, the crystal doesn't shine. Not a single spark, not even a single star appears. Even the most ordinary humans with 0 powers always show a 1-star talent. But Alistair shows an absolute 0-star talent. In this very moment, he has just made history. A student screams in disbelief. How can a human have 0 talent? Another shouts across the field. Did Lord Hugh break the testing crystal with his SSS grade power? To confirm the machine isn't broken, the examiner steps forward and touches the pillar. The crystal instantly lights up, displaying the examiner's exact rank without error. The examiner turns around and announces coldly, 0-star talent, no superpower, fail. The crowd erupts into ruthless laughter and mockery. The principal sighs in deep disappointment. The vice principal even jokes that their school has at least made history today. Alistair pays 0 attention to their insults. He turns around, walks out of the school gates, and heads straight home. None of their worthless opinions matter to him anymore, the moment he steps inside his bedroom and shuts the door. A crisp notification chimes directly inside his mind. The World Travel Simulator system is online. The system immediately lays out its rules. It simulates entire lifetimes across different dimensions and realities. The higher his final performance score, the greater the rewards he will receive. An S-grade score grants every single reward available. Lower grades offer far fewer prizes. To achieve that ultimate S-grade, he must defeat the strongest entities and uncover the world's deepest hidden secrets. Reaching an S-grade score also unlocks realistic simulations, allowing him to claim total ownership over that world. However, dying in a realistic simulation means permanent, real-world death. The system's voice rings out. "Does the host want to start the simulation?" Without a second of hesitation, Alistair answers, "Yes, start the simulation. The chosen world is a zombie world." Before the journey begins, the system presents 5 randomized talents, scaling from white all the way up to red grade. To launch his very first simulation, Alistair must now choose 3. The system screen lights up with 5 random options. Every single one of them is the lowest white grade: athlete, runner, joke master, cosplayer, and sword noob. Alistair furrows his brows in frustration. Is my luck this bad? Only white talents. Still, he has to work with what he has. Athlete enhances his raw physical stats. Runner gives him an essential burst of speed. Sword noob only grants him flashy anime stances. Yet it is still far more useful than cracking jokes in front of flesh-eating monsters. Alistair locks in his choices: athlete, runner, sword noob. Starting the simulation in zombie world. Alistair snaps awake inside a university dorm room to the sound of pure terror outside. He checks the mirror. His appearance remains completely unchanged. A flood of memories instantly rushes into his head. He is currently on the 5th floor, inside room 169. His 3 roommates had left the previous day, leaving him totally alone. This is a massive stroke of luck. He won't have to deal with infected roommates in a cramped room. Alistair immediately begins scavenging every corner. He secures 2 bottles of water, bags of chips, and biscuits. The tap water is still running, but he doesn't dare drink a single drop to avoid direct infection. For a weapon, he grabs a small kitchen knife. He then wraps layers of thick clothing around his forearms to defend against lethal bites. Stepping toward the window, he looks down at pure hell. Absolute chaos covers the entire school campus. Hordes of zombies are relentlessly hunting down students. The moment a zombie bites a human, it immediately turns away to hunt its next prey. The infected are left behind, completely ignored even before they turn. Alistair quickly notices a crucial weakness. These zombies are totally blind and rely purely on sound to hunt. Down below, a desperate group of students tries to distract the horde with loud noise. Alistair doesn't hesitate for a second. He pulls the curtains shut. He has zero intention of playing hero and risking his own life. Suddenly, the lights flicker and die. The power is out, cutting off all internet access. Alistair packs his survival gear into a backpack. He grips the knife tight in his hand. Slowly, he pushes the door open. He peeks into the dark hallway, and what he sees freezes him in place. Peeking into the hallway, Alistair spots over 20 zombies aimlessly wandering in the dark. He carefully pushes the door open. His limited rations won't last long anyway. Since this is only a simulation, he chooses to take the ultimate risk. Alistair dashes forward and slashes a zombie directly across the neck. The monster collapses to the floor with a loud, heavy crash. That single sound instantly alerts 26 other zombies down the hall. They swarm him from every angle, cutting off all paths of escape. Alistair swings his knife with raw ferocity, taking down several infected before the horde violently overpowers him. Sharp, rotten teeth sink deep into his flesh. The moment he is bitten, the zombies lose all interest and walk away. Excruciating agony tears through every fiber of his muscles. Dark, corrupted veins bulge across his pale skin. Through sheer, unbreakable willpower, Alistair forces a tiny spark of his consciousness to stay alive. His vision blurs into darkness. His body moves purely on primal, predatory instinct. Worst of all, a maddening, uncontrollable hunger for living human flesh consumes his mind. He endures the living nightmare only because he knows this is just a simulation. 2 full days pass in endless agony. Suddenly, a door clicks open down the hallway. 4 desperate students armed with kitchen knives and frying pans step out of room 172. That tiny sound instantly triggers the horde. Driven by absolute hunger, Alistair charges forward alongside the pack of monsters. Just as he lunges in, one student coats his blade in crackling lightning and cleanly slices Alistair's head clean off. Death comes instantly. The simulation has ended. Final score, D grade. The system immediately presents 5 reward options. His comprehensive strength from the simulation, an F-tier zombie bloodline, or one of his 3 original white-grade talents. Alistair asks for clarification. System, what does comprehensive strength include? The system responds smoothly. It includes your peak physical power, speed, and endurance from your zombie form, without any negative side effects. Without a second thought, Alistair makes his call. I choose the comprehensive strength. A violent wave of pure energy surges directly into his veins. His bones harden, and his muscles rapidly rebuild with immense power. Alistair clenches his fist in pure excitement. Just like that, his raw physical strength has instantly reached the level of a first-tier transcendent. Alistair tests his new power with a series of lightning-fast punches into the air. His physical strength now matches a first-level transcendent. Future simulations are going to be on a whole different level. The system notifies him of a 1-hour cooldown for his D-grade score. To pass the time, Alistair jumps into an online shooter game. With his newly boosted reflexes and insane reaction speed, he completely dominates the lobby. The moment the timer hits 0, he presses the simulation button without delay. This time, the system rolls out far higher tier talents: clown, necrophiliac, gay, zombie virus immunity, and swordsman. The purple grade talent, zombie virus immunity, guarantees he won't turn into an infected monster, and offers a high chance of triggering a positive superpower mutation. The blue grade talent, swordsman, instantly grants him over a decade of elite blade mastery. Alistair locks in zombie virus immunity and swordsman immediately. To avoid picking gay or clown, he reluctantly selects the green talent, necrophiliac. Starting the simulation in zombie world. Alistair snaps awake once again inside room 169 on the 5th floor. Lethal screams echo outside just like before. This time, things are completely different. He carries the raw physical strength of a zombie. He wields a real, sharp steel sword, and his mind is packed with master-level swordsmanship. His roommates are nowhere to be seen, giving him absolute safety inside the room. He swiftly packs the 2 water bottles, chips, and biscuits into his backpack. The steel sword sits firmly at his waist. Alistair knows exactly what is waiting on the other side of that door. 27 blind zombies roaming the corridor. Instead of sneaking around like a cornered prey, he violently kicks the door wide open. The thunderous bang echoes down the entire hall. Every single infected turns around and charges at him in a rabid frenzy. Alistair doesn't even bother drawing his blade. Instead, he stands tall, extends his bare arm forward, and lets the lead zombie bite him directly. Rotten teeth sink deep into his flesh, sending a burning pain through his arm. Alistair doesn't flinch. He endures the agony in complete silence. The second the lethal virus enters his bloodstream, the remaining zombies lose all aggression and wander away. A strange foreign energy violently erupts through his veins. A fierce shockwave explodes from his body, blowing the surrounding air outward. Alistair flicks his fingers and feels the atmosphere answer his command. The mutation was a complete success. He has just awakened the lethal superpower of air manipulation. Alistair realizes the infected still treat him as one of their own. Even after mutating into an awakened transcendent, the monsters completely ignore him. This has to be the combined effect of his purple immunity talent and the necrophiliac trait. For a second, he considers recruiting the lightning user holed up in room 172. He drops the thought almost immediately. In an apocalyptic wasteland, desperate humans are far more lethal than mindless beasts. He slips off the 5th floor in total silence, leaving the remaining survivors to whatever fate awaits them. Watching this unfold from the real world, Alistair can't help but smirk. Air manipulation is a terrifyingly versatile power. Unlike fire or water, air is everywhere, at all times. even if this run ends prematurely. Extracting this awakened power, or the purple talent, into reality will skyrocket his true combat strength. Back inside the simulation, Alistair descends the stairwell. On the second-floor landing, a group of male students is pinned down by a ravenous pack. One of them spots him and screams at the top of his lungs, "Help us, bro!" Alistair doesn't even slow his pace. He walks right past them without a single glance. He has zero interest in carrying dead weight. Pushing through the ground floor exit, he steps out into absolute ruin. Wrecked, burning vehicles litter the wide campus roads. Thick black smoke and the stench of iron fill the air. Thousands of infected roam freely across the courtyards, yet not a single one turns aggressive toward him. Alistair takes full advantage of the peace to test his limits. He flicks his wrist casually. A razor-sharp blade of compressed wind slices across the mob. In a clean, silent arc, it severs the heads of multiple zombies in a split second. Next, he condenses the atmosphere into a solid spear of air and drives it straight through another monster's chest. The creature stumbles back, but keeps twitching on its feet. His theory is confirmed. Body shots are useless. Only completely crushing the skull or severing the neck guarantees a kill. With his combat test complete, Alistair changes direction and sets his sights straight toward the female dormitory. Alistair tries to harness his wind power to take flight. He immediately hits a wall. His current energy reserves are far too low. He quickly realizes the truth behind this power system. Cultivating and feeding the zombie virus inside his body is the only way to evolve. The dormant strain in his veins demands a higher concentration of the pathogen to grow. Since the infected treat him as an ally and refuse to attack, he has to take matters into his own hands. Alistair decides to drink zombie blood directly. It carries a far denser viral load than any contaminated tap water ever could. He extends his hand, locking a nearby zombie in place using pressurized currents of compressed air. The creature freezes completely still like a lifeless statue. To keep his steel sword clean and sharp, Alistair forms a razor-thin blade of wind and cleanly slices open the monster's wrist. He uses his telekinetic airflow to levitate the dark, foul liquid into the air and swallows the corrupted blood without a single trace of hesitation. It burns down his throat like battery acid mixed with rusted iron. Taste means nothing. Absolute power is the only thing that matters. Alistair immediately drops into a seated meditation. The mutated virus inside his cells violently devours the foreign blood. A massive wave of pure energy explodes through his circulatory system. His wind manipulation sharpens instantly, and his stamina pool expands drastically. In just a few moments, he breaks through from an F rank to an E rank awakener. With this breakthrough comes a grim realization. If humans can evolve into supernatural transcendence using the virus, then the zombies roaming the streets will inevitably evolve into monstrous apex predators over time. Watching this from his bedroom in the real world, Alistair smirks with satisfaction. Even without rolling high-tier intelligence talents, his simulated self figured out the core path to power. The female dormitory can wait. Alistair instantly pivots his strategy. He turns the roaming horde around him into his own personal blood farm, draining the monsters dry one by one to aggressively stack his power. Alistair spends the next several hours systematically draining zombie blood and consuming it without stop. Passing groups of desperate students and teachers watch him slaughter monsters effortlessly. They drop to their knees and beg him to protect them. One arrogant teacher steps forward, trying to threaten and emotionally manipulate him into submission. Alistair doesn't waste a single breath. A flash of compressed wind slices forward, and the teacher's head rolls cleanly across the asphalt. The crowd screeches in absolute horror and scatters in panic. In their frantic escape, they lure an entire fresh horde straight in toward the courtyard. Alistair instantly clamps the incoming infected, in place with heavy air currents. More blood bags delivered right to his doorstep. Witnessing the ruthless execution, every other survivor nearby learns the lesson fast and steers clear. After hours of non-stop consumption, an explosive shockwave ripples through his body. Alistair officially breaks through to the D-rank initial stage. His wind manipulation sharpens to a devastating, lethal tier. His internal energy reserves expand tenfold. With a single flex of power, he can effortlessly leap over entire buildings and hover suspended in midair. Back in reality, Alistair watches the simulation screen with pure satisfaction. A D-rank Awakener easily matches a third-level Transcendent. Achieving this level of raw dominance on day 1 makes him an unstoppable apex predator across the campus. Soon enough, his rapid evolution hits a solid wall. Drinking ordinary SDF rank blood now only replenishes his spent stamina without increasing his core stats. Quality has become the ultimate bottleneck. E-rank mutated zombies are nearly non-existent on the first day of the outbreak. He has squeezed every last drop of potential out of day 1. With his current strength maxed out, Alistair shifts his focus back to his original objective. Channeling wind currents beneath his feet, he rockets toward the female dormitory at blinding speed. The roaming monsters in his path can't even perceive the blur passing them by. Arriving at the dormitory grounds, Alistair halts in his tracks. Just ahead in the courtyard, 5 men, 4 male students and a male teacher, have backed a defenseless, stunning girl against the wall. In this ruined wasteland, civilization is dead, and human morality has completely collapsed. Alistair pauses as he takes in the scene before him. He recognizes the girl in an instant. She is none other than the school belle, Lynn Conway, striking long blonde hair, vibrant red eyes, unmatched beauty. Lynn notices his presence and turns toward him with desperate, pleading eyes. She knows that securing his protection is her one and only shot at survival. The 5 predators turn around and spot him watching. One sneers aggressively. "Get lost! There are 5 of us and only 1 of you!" Alistair raises his right hand, shaping his fingers into the form of a gun. He whispers coldly, "Bang!" A hyper-condensed bullet of air tears straight through the man's skull. Without pausing, Alistair fires 4 more lethal shots in rapid succession. All 5 men drop to the floor, lifeless within seconds. Alistair steps forward, casually kicking a corpse out of his way. He looks down at Lynn. "You will follow me from now on. I protect you, but you pay the price." Lynn grits her teeth and firmly nods in agreement. As they begin walking away from the dormitory grounds, a feral zombie lunges from a second-floor window and slams Lynn into the concrete. Rotten teeth sink deep into her flesh before Alistair can intervene. Alistair blasts the beast backward with a shockwave of pressurized air and reduces it to shredded meat with a storm of razor-sharp wind blades. The monster is dead, yet the lethal virus has already invaded her bloodstream. Lynn stumbles back in absolute terror, tears streaming down her face. "Stay back! Please kill me! I don't want to turn into a monster and hurt you!" Alistair ignores the warning, steps forward, and pulls her firmly into his chest. "Don't worry, I am here. Even if you turn, I will still protect you." The viral corruption takes hold instantly. Her heartbeat comes to a dead stop. Her body temperature plunges to ice. Yet, to her sheer disbelief, her mind remains entirely intact. Lynn gasps in utter shock. "Why can I still think and talk?" A sudden, overwhelming hunger for raw, living flesh begins to violently hijack her mind. Before the primal urge can fully claim her sanity, Alistair pulls her face close and kisses her deeply. The overwhelming sensation floods her senses, shattering the rabid bloodlust and soothing her wild hunger. From that very second onward, she officially becomes his zombie girlfriend. A crisp notification chime echoes directly inside Alistair's mind. "You have obtained the memory file, First Kiss with Lynn Conway, Zombie Girl Edition." Alistair brings up his system interface and spots a brand new feature called the Memory Folder. Opening it reveals a sleek file manager containing the newly saved record. The system breaks down the mechanics. Romantic milestones achieved in the simulation are permanently saved as memory files. During intimate moments, you will enter a partial full dive state to experience them directly, while time in the real world completely pauses. Curious, Alistair taps the file. A torrent of hyper-realistic memories floods his consciousness in a split second. The freezing touch of Lynn's pale lips, the electrifying intensity of the kiss, her exact scent lingering in the air. Every single sensory detail hits him with absolute realism, as if it took place just seconds ago. Alistair touches his own lips in genuine shock. Yet, he shakes the distraction away. Raw power is his absolute priority. Without overwhelming strength, survival across both realities is an impossible dream. He dives right back into the simulation without wasting another moment. Inside the ruined zombie world, Alistair makes an incredible discovery. Exchanging his saliva completely suppresses Lin's rabid hunger for human flesh. His awakened transcendent fluids carry purified viral energy, refueling her mutated body without the need for human meat. With her feral instincts fully contained and pacified, Alistair and Lin walk side by side through the ruined campus gates, ready to unleash their path of total evolution upon the world. Alistair and Lin reach the campus gates. A heavy barricade completely blocks their path. Behind the barricade, a hostile group of surviving students stands guard. One of them points and screams, "Look, that freak is with a zombie. Isn't that the school bell? Did he turn her?" Alistair's voice drops to absolute zero. "Do you want to block our way and die?" Razor-sharp spears of solid wind manifest in the air around him. Every single spear points directly at their leader, Mark Dolt. Mark, the varsity basketball captain, sneers with arrogance. He ignites his fists in raging, blazing flames. "You're not the only one who awakened a superpower." Alistair doesn't even waste a word. With a single gesture, he strips every trace of oxygen from the surrounding space. A pressurized, airtight wall of solid wind locks the entire group inside. The blazing fire on Mark's fists instantly extinguishes into thin air. Deprived of air and choking on toxic gases, Mark and his entire crew collapse. Within seconds, their lifeless bodies hit the concrete. Alistair steps over to the nearby guardhouse to scavenge. He collects extra canned food and packs it into his survival bag. Since Lin requires zero human food, his supplies remain well preserved. However, Lin needs dense viral energy to stabilize her evolving form and preserve her sanity. Mindless zombies only spread the bite, but evolved variants crave living flesh. As an E-rank awakener, Mark's body holds pure, concentrated viral essence. Alistair forms a sharp wind blade to slice Mark's flesh. He uses telekinetic airflow to levitate the meat directly toward Lin. Lin trembles, looking at the offering with fear in her eyes. "Are you sure? If I start eating human flesh, I might turn into a real monster." Alistair holds her gaze and speaks with total conviction. "No matter what monster you become, I will stay by your side. You are my Lin." His words shatter her hesitation. Lin takes the meat and consumes the concentrated power. Crimson blood stains her pale lips as her feral hunger completely vanishes. With a gentle breeze, Alistair wipes the blood from her face. Together they turn toward the open city, ready to advance. Consuming Mark's flesh triggers an instant surge in Lin's strength. She breaks through directly into the E-rank intermediate stage. Alistair hands her a sturdy metal bat for close quarters combat. Lin smiles gently, her eyes softening. "Thank you, Alistair. I thought you only wanted my body, but you truly love me." Alistair pulls her into a firm embrace. In this ruined, blood-soaked world, she is the only companion he can truly trust. Holding Lin's hand, Alistair summons a raging miniature tornado. The violent vortex obliterates the reinforced school gates into splinters, wiping out the entire horde, blocking their path in a single blast. Together, they step out into the sprawling ruined city. Their sole objective: hunt down evolved variants to harvest higher concentrations of the virus. One full week passes in non-stop slaughter. Endless battles push Alistair to the D-rank intermediate stage. Lin rises rapidly to the E-rank peak stage. By analyzing the flow of viral energy inside their veins, Alistair designs a structured cultivation system to accelerate their evolution. 3 weeks later, the results speak for themselves. Lin shatters her bottleneck to reach D-rank intermediate stage. Alistair breaks straight into the C-rank initial stage. With her breakthrough, Lin finally awakens her unique superpower: pure physical augmentation. She can channel concentrated viral energy directly into her muscle fibers, multiplying her physical speed, endurance, and crushing strike power to monstrous levels. Meanwhile, Alistair achieves a groundbreaking breakthrough. He creates the viral evolution breathing method. This technique allows them to naturally absorb airborne viral particles with every breath, refining and purifying their internal energy non-stop. 6 months into the global apocalypse, the world transforms completely. Mutated apex beasts and evolved carnivorous plants conquer the ruins. Ordinary F-rank zombies have gone entirely extinct. Through relentless slaughter and viral refinement, Lin reaches the terrifying A-rank initial stage. Alistair stands even higher at the A-rank late stage. Together, they officially stand at the absolute pinnacle of this broken world. 6 months into the global apocalypse, Alistair and Lin rule as the undisputed apex rulers. The strongest human awakeners in existence can barely scrape the B-rank peak stage. None of them can even dream of touching Alistair's devastating A-rank late-stage power. Yet, despite 6 long months of surviving lethal wars side by side, both of them had stayed purely obsessed with training and survival. Neither had taken their intimacy to the next level, until tonight. The bedroom door slowly clicks open. Lin steps into the room. Damp blonde strands drape over her shoulders. Only a single white bath towel wraps around her stunning silhouette. A sharp system chime echoes directly into his mind. Host may now enter partial full dive simulation. Without hesitation, Alistair commands, "Enter partial full dive simulation." In the real world, time instantly grinds to a dead halt. His physical reality fades into frozen black and white. In a fraction of a second, his consciousness fully merges into the simulated world. Alistair finds himself sitting on the edge of a massive bed. Lin walks toward him with silent steps. Her vibrant crimson eyes lock onto his with pure emotion. "Do you mind if I sleep with you tonight, Alistair?" Alistair smirks gently. "Of course I don't mind." Lin lets the towel fall to the floor and throws herself into his embrace. Alistair wraps his arms around her cold, flawless body, flips her down onto the soft mattress, and claims her lips with an intense, deep kiss. Under the cover of the ruined apocalypse, the two spend the entire night together, permanently sealing their bond as one. Alistair opens his eyes back inside his quiet bedroom as the partial full dive concludes. The vivid sensations of that intimate night linger heavily in his mind. Every single touch, breath, and feeling was completely real. Alistair asks with a serious tone, "The system, did everything in that partial full dive actually happen?" The system responds smoothly. "Yes, all events in the simulation truly happened in parallel timelines. However, dying will reset the world." A sudden wave of melancholy washes over Alistair. If he falls in this simulation, that entire universe will be wiped clean. Lin will completely lose every memory of their deep bond, and everything they fought to build will simply vanish into nothingness. Noticing his resolve, the system presents a direct solution. A blue talent called Remember Me allows a chosen target to retain all memories across every timeline. Achieve at least an A-grade score in this run, and the system can insert it into your next talent pool. Alistair's crimson eyes gleam with sharp conviction. "Then please add that talent in the next simulation. I am confident I will get an A grade." With his purpose burning brighter than ever, Alistair locks his attention back onto the simulation display. Inside the ruined zombie dimension, their relationship has reached an unbreakable peak. Fueled by absolute trust and deep devotion, Alistair and Lin throw themselves entirely into brutal cultivation, hell-bent on conquering the pinnacle of existence together. 7 months into the apocalypse, Lin reaches the A-rank late stage. Alistair hits a massive bottleneck at the A-rank peak stage. Stepping into the mythical S-rank seems completely impossible. Even after draining countless high-tier mutated zombies, his progress remains dead in the water. Lin notices his growing frustration and makes a terrifying proposal. She offers her own life. She begs him to consume her flesh and blood so he can finally break through his limits. Knowing he has the power to reset the entire timeline after death, Alistair hesitates. Lin looks at him with a pure, trusting smile. Alistair grips his sword tightly, his heart shattering into pieces. He whispers softly, "I am sorry, Lin. I will make it up to you in the next timeline," with a clean, painless swing of his blade. He severs Lin's head and catches it gently in a cradle of wind. Even in death, that gentle smile never leaves her face. A tidal wave of pure agony and bottomless grief explodes within his soul. The violent emotional trauma shocks the mutated virus inside his veins, unlocking a hidden path of absolute evolution. A cataclysmic burst of viral energy erupts from his body. The bottleneck shatters into dust. Alistair officially ascends as the world's very first S-rank awakener. To honor her ultimate sacrifice, he consumes her flesh and blood. His power surges even further, skyrocketing directly to the S-rank intermediate stage. He is now completely, utterly invincible across the globe. Yet, looking around at the empty wasteland, the world feels utterly meaningless. Alistair mutters to the empty wind, "What is the point of being the strongest without Lin?" He manifests a razor-sharp blade of wind, slashes his own throat, and ends his own life without hesitation. Death claims him instantly. Simulation ended. Final score, A+. The system unlocks 5 massive rewards, allowing him to claim 4. His full S-rank combat strength and air manipulation, his complete viral research data and breathing methods, or his previous high-tier talents, including the purple-grade zombie virus immunity. Alistair stares at the glowing screen with absolute determination, ready to bring Lin back to his side in the next timeline. Alistair selects rewards 1, 2, 4, and 5 without a single second of hesitation. A monstrous surge of pure power instantly floods every cell of his body. The surrounding atmosphere warps and bends effortlessly to his will. Countless battle memories, lethal swordsmanship instincts, and vast viral research flash across his mind. He can clearly feel the terrifying S-rank viral energy coursing through his veins. Alistair asks with caution, "System, will the virus in my body infect people and start an apocalypse here?" The system responds smoothly. "No, host. The laws of this world differ. The virus acts purely as your internal energy pool, just like a mana core." Alistair smirks in pure relief. His S-rank intermediate power from the zombie world easily matches a 7th-level transcendent in his real reality. While the school genius Hugh Carlson is stuck pathetically at level 1, Alistair has surpassed him by light years in a single afternoon. Beyond god-tier air manipulation, his physical constitution has evolved to S-rank toughness. He is now a lethal hybrid of an indestructible warrior and an apex mage. Still, he decides to keep a low profile until he achieves absolute, unshakable invincibility. The system announces a 12-hour cooldown for his A-grade score. Backed by his monstrous new stamina pool, Alistair games through the entire night without a trace of fatigue. At 4 a.m. sharp, the simulation interface glows brightly once again. Alistair slams the start button immediately. The host can choose 3 of these talents. Remember me? The system displayed 5 talents on the screen. Alistair saw a shiny gold option and exclaimed, "A gold talent! I hit the jackpot!" The gold talent, Dual Awakener, allowed him to unlock a second superpower. The blue talent, Remember Me, restored memories across timelines, while the purple talent, Master Swordsman, granted peak sword mastery. Alistair ignored the fat and useless talents, instantly locking in his top 3 choices. The system notified, starting the simulation in zombie world. Alistair woke up in his dormitory as screams echoed outside. This was his 3rd run, turning him into a true regressor. In this timeline, he was no longer an average student, but the president of the Kendo Club and a recognized sword prodigy. More importantly, he retained his peak rank intermediate stage power from the previous run. Suddenly, a new force awakened inside him. Without using any wind, the bed beneath him levitated into the air with a single thought. The gold talent had activated, granting him mind control. He could now move objects telekinetically and manipulate the minds of anyone with weaker willpower. However, meeting Lin was his top priority. Alistair leaped out of the 5th-floor window and took flight using his wind power. Below him, chaos tore through the campus as zombies swarmed the students. Moving at high speed, he ignored the screams and flew straight toward the female dormitory. He landed on the rooftop, completely unchallenged on day 1 of the apocalypse. Alistair extended his mental perception across the building, searching every room to locate Lin. Alistair locks onto Lin's presence inside her barricaded room on the 1st floor. He steps straight off the edge of the rooftop. Plummeting 5 stories down, he slams directly into the concrete below. The sheer impact shatters the asphalt into a massive crater. Thanks to his S-rank physical toughness, he stands up without a single scratch. The thunderous crash instantly draws the attention of nearby zombies. Yet the moment they lay eyes on him, they instinctively recoil in sheer terror, sensing the ultimate apex predator standing before them. Alistair walks straight into the ground floor corridor as the horde parts like the sea. With a simple flex of telekinesis, the locked doorknob clicks open from the outside. He pushes the door open and steps into Lin's room. Lin stands in the center in her school uniform, her guard fully up and eyes wide with shock. Alistair looks at her and smiles softly. "I have returned, Lin." Lin backs away in utter confusion. "Have we met before?" Her hand subtly slips under her pillow, tightening around the handle of a hidden kitchen knife. She recognizes him as the school's renowned sword prodigy. Yet a male student breaching a locked dorm room during a global apocalypse triggers every survival instinct. Alistair decides to tease his amnesiac girlfriend just a little, moving at blinding, untraceable speed. He manifests directly in front of her. He gently tilts her chin upward and claims her cherry-pink lips with a sudden kiss. A crisp system chime echoes in his mind, instantly logging another memory file into his folder. Lynn shoves him away in pure distress, tears welling in her eyes as she presses the sharp blade against her own throat. "If you try to touch me again, I will kill myself." Alistair smirks playfully. "Can't I just play with your corpse then?" Lynn freezes in pure horror, utterly paralyzed by his chilling words. Seeing her on the verge of breaking into tears, Alistair chuckles softly. "Fine, I won't tease you anymore." Right then, he triggers the blue talent, Remember Me. A tidal wave of vivid memories from their previous lifetime floods Lynn's consciousness. Every battle, every embrace, and every sacrifice crashes back into her soul. The terror evaporates in an instant, replaced by overflowing warmth and deep affection. Lynn drops the blade and pouts cutely. "You meanie!" Alistair chuckles and teases her playfully. "What? I can't tease my own girlfriend? It's not my fault you forgot everything from our last timeline." Lynn realizes the immense hurdles he had to cross just to restore her memories. Her annoyance melts away, instantly forgiving his little prank. Alistair wraps his arms around her waist, pulling her close as he whispers softly, "I promised I'd reset the world for you. I'm already the strongest in this world, so we can do whatever we want." Lynn feels a deep warmth fill her chest, but a sudden chilling realization strikes her mind. Worry takes over her voice. "Wait, you said you can only reset the timeline after dying. Who was strong enough to kill an S-rank like you?" Alistair smiles gently down at her. "No one in this world can kill me, Lynn, except myself." Lynn's red eyes widen in pure, unadulterated shock. "You ended your own life just to bring me back?" Alistair strokes her golden hair, his tone entirely steady. "A world without you is meaningless." The truth hits her like a sledgehammer. He threw away supreme godhood and sacrificed his own life just to see her face again. An overwhelming surge of love and devotion completely consumes her soul. Her face burns bright crimson, yet she pushes past the embarrassment and boldly pins him down onto the mattress. Lynn whispers directly into his ear, "Do you want to taste me in my human form? I'm still a virgin in this timeline." A sharp system chime rings out instantly. "Host may now enter partial full dive simulation." Alistair accepts without a second of hesitation. He loses himself in an intense, passionate hour with Lynn before his consciousness returns to his bedroom in the real world. Back inside the simulation, Lynn feels the crushing exhaustion weighing heavily on her mortal frame compared to her limitless zombie stamina. She refuses to remain a weak damsel. She wants to stand proudly by his side, matching his terrifying godlike power without ever slowing him down. Looking directly into his crimson eyes, Lynn asks with absolute resolve, "Alistair, can I become a zombie again?" Alistair is momentarily surprised by Lynn's request, but he understands her completely. Having spent 7 brutal months as an evolved zombie in the previous timeline, she had grown entirely used to that immortal physique and its overwhelming power. Her transformation also benefits his long-term plans immensely. It grants her total immunity from roaming hordes. It blesses her with immense supernatural strength, and it allows him to safely push his deep viral research to uncharted heights. During his past biological experiments, Alistair cracked the hidden physiology of the infected. Their internal organs shut down completely, turning their entire bodies into living incubators for the virus. Any consumed flesh is instantly dissolved by concentrated viral energy inside the stomach, directly converting into pure biological fuel with absolute zero waste left behind. Alistair smiles gently into her eyes. "Yes, you can become a zombie again. Human or zombie, my love for you will never change." Lynn feels deeply moved by his unconditional devotion. This time around, Alistair refuses to let a filthy creature touch her. In the previous timeline, an unexpected ambush triggered her change. Yet this time, he demands a pure, refined, and controlled evolution. Alistair reassures her with calm confidence. "I have a safe way to transform you without letting a filthy zombie bite you," Lynn asks with genuine curiosity. "Is it the viral evolution breathing method you created before?" Alistair shakes his head gently. "No, The breathing method was designed for human awakeners to absorb ambient energy without turning. If you use it, you will become a human awakener, not a zombie. He already understands the deepest mechanics of the viral source code. Armed with absolute S-rank precision, Alistair prepares to manually guide her royal transformation using pure, refined viral energy. Alistair lays out the transformation paths before Lynn. There are 3 ways to turn into a zombie without getting bitten. First, you can drink contaminated tap water, but the low virus concentration might awaken you as a human instead. The second way is drinking pure zombie blood, which is stronger but still unpredictable. Alistair pauses for a brief moment. The third and best way is drinking my blood. With my refined viral essence, I can instantly restore your peak strength from the previous timeline. Lynn furrows her brows in deep concern. If you give me your blood, your own evolution rank will drop. Alistair shrugs with total nonchalance. I will only drop from S-rank intermediate to S-rank initial stage, while you instantly regain your A-rank late-stage power. I only reached the intermediate stage after consuming your power in the last timeline. So think of this as returning what belonged to you from the start. Seeing the unbreakable resolve in his crimson eyes, Lynn finally nods in agreement. Alistair manifests a razor-sharp wind blade, slices open his own wrist, and uses telekinetic airflow to levitate the dense, glowing crimson blood into the air. Lynn parts her lips, allowing the pure, concentrated viral fluid to flow directly down her throat. A heavy wave of fatigue washes over Alistair as his power realm drops back to the S-rank initial stage. Channeling his masterful control over viral energy, he guides the potent strain deep into Lynn's cells, flawlessly replicating her original viral genetic code. 1 hour passes in intense concentration. The royal transformation reaches absolute completion. Lynn successfully ascends into an evolved zombie once more, fully regaining her monstrous physical augmentation superpower and her peak A-rank late-stage strength. Alistair does not care in the slightest that his realm dropped. Combining S-rank initial stage air manipulation with his brand new telekinesis makes him far deadlier than ever before. He ponders the true origin of this global apocalypse, whether the pathogen escaped from a top-secret lab or descended from an ancient cosmic entity. It makes zero difference to him. Even if an overpowered mastermind lurks deep in the shadows, Alistair can effortlessly reset the timeline through death until he devises the perfect path to victory. His grand strategy is absolute simplicity. Gather intelligence, push his combat powers to the limit, and end his own life right before crossing into an S-grade score. This guarantees he can safely farm god-tier rewards without ever risking permanent death in a realistic simulation. Beside him, Lynn fully acclimates to her restored A-rank late-stage power. With all her memories and lethal combat instincts intact, she stands ready as his ultimate battle partner. Side by side, they step out into the dimly lit hallway, surrounded by wandering infected. Alistair turns to her with a playful smirk. Guess what new superpower I awakened, Lynn? Lynn tilts her head in genuine curiosity. Dual awakeners are borderline mythical, yet she already knows Alistair defies every law of common sense. Alistair instantly releases his mind control across the entire floor. The wandering zombies freeze dead in their tracks. Moving in flawless, terrifying synchronization, the entire pack turns toward the couple and drops to their knees in absolute, unconditional obedience. Lynn gasps in pure disbelief. You can control zombies now? At that very second, Alistair's sharp mental perception catches the presence of surviving students hiding behind barricaded doors. Peeking through the narrow cracks in sheer, paralyzing horror, Alistair's gaze turns pitch black and ice cold. Dead people tell no tales. He has zero intention of leaving a single loose end alive. In a simulated reality where death triggers a complete reset, mortal morality simply does not exist. In this world, he can do whatever he wants. Alistair corrects Lynn's guess with a slight smirk. Controlling zombies is only a fraction of my power. My real ability is mind control. To prove his words, Alistair unleashes the full weight of his raw telekinesis. The kneeling zombies are instantly dragged into the air. Invisible forces violently twist and snap their limbs in midair. With a single clench of his fist, the entire horde is compressed into a dense, horrific sphere of crushed bone and mangled flesh. Lynn looks at him with shining eyes. As expected of my boyfriend, You're getting terrifyingly strong. Alistair keeps his voice level and cautious. We cannot be careless. True monsters might still be hiding in the shadows. With their business finished, the two step out into the open courtyard. Inside the building, the surviving students cheer in desperate relief, believing they have finally been rescued. Alistair has zero intention of leaving witnesses. He unleashes a massive, crushing wave of telekinetic force straight into the foundational pillars. The entire 5-story dormitory crumbles in a split second. Tons of reinforced concrete collapse violently, burying every single human alive under the rubble. With a flick of his wrist, Alistair compresses the entire mountain of debris into a tight ball of ruin, ensuring absolute zero survivors remain. Lynn watches the total annihilation without blinking an eye. In a lawless wasteland where she has already tasted human flesh to survive, the lives of strangers mean nothing. Alistair glances back at the crushed structure. Did you have any friends in there, Lynn? Lynn's tone is entirely detached. No, they were all fake friends who envied my looks and grades anyway. She smiles playfully to break the tension. You know, you're the famous sword prodigy now. You probably just crushed a few of your own fangirls. Alistair chuckles at the thought. How ironic. The sword prodigy never even draws his sword. Sharing a quiet laugh, the couple turns their backs on the ruined campus, vanishing into the sprawling concrete jungle of the city. Mark and his thugs block the school gates, staring down Alistair and Lynn. Mark grins with total arrogance. You're the sword prodigy, right? How about becoming my subordinate? Lynn stares at the boy in pure disbelief. Mark is nothing more than a freshly awakened F-rank weakling. Meanwhile, she is an A-rank evolved zombie. And Alistair stands at the absolute peak of S-rank godhood. Mark ignites his fists with tiny pathetic flickers of flame. I'm Fire Fist Mark. Work under me and nobody will dare touch you. Alistair prepares to suffocate the entire group on the spot. Yet he halts his hand as a far better scheme takes shape. Building a disposable private army could test the absolute limits of his mental manipulation. Subordinates can easily handle the tedious grunt work while gathering vital intelligence. Alistair instantly unleashes a surge of invisible telepathic energy, completely overriding the neural networks inside their brains. The arrogance vanishes from their eyes. Mark and his goons drop hard onto their knees in perfect unison. Mark lowers his head with absolute reverence. Boss, we are willing to die for you. Lynn giggles and teases softly. I didn't know our sword prodigy was secretly the hidden school boss. Alistair smirks back at her. Well, you're the boss's wife, so you command them too. Turning his icy gaze back to his brainwashed puppets, Alistair delivers his commands. Secure the entire campus. Eliminate anyone who dares resist, but report any newly awakened transcendents directly to me. Mark bows to the floor. Understood, boss. Alistair watches his new pawns march away. His ultimate objective remains rock solid. Master his mind control. Hunt down the true identity of the apocalyptic mastermind, and strictly cap his final performance score at A grade. Triggering an S grade rating too early would force a high-risk realistic simulation before he has farmed enough god-tier rewards. He looks at Lynn standing faithfully by his side, determined to conquer this broken world and secure their future together. Alistair finalizes his absolute command over Mark and his lackeys by establishing a direct telepathic network. This psychic link allows instantaneous, two-way communication across any distance. His supreme S-rank mental authority completely rewires their consciousness, guaranteeing eternal and unquestioned loyalty. Stepping toward the main campus gates, Alistair swings the heavy steel barriers wide open. A feral, ravenous horde from the outer street swarms the entrance in a mad frenzy. With a single, casual wave of his hand, Alistair unleashes a crushing wave of psychic dominance. All 100 F-rank zombies freeze dead in their tracks like stone statues. Bending mindless monsters to his will proves far easier than breaking human minds. Instead of wiping the paralyzed horde out of existence, Alistair transfers secondary mental control directly to Mark and Lynn. Just like that, Mark receives a personal vanguard of 100 relentless undead shock troopers. Armed with this monstrous garrison, Mark's unit can effortlessly construct an impenetrable base within the campus walls, and easily eliminate any rising rival awakeners, including the dangerous lightning user holed up in dorm 172. With every preparation flawlessly executed, Alistair turns toward the ruined city. Lynn wraps her arms tightly around his side and looks up at him. "Where do you want to go next, Alistair?" Alistair smiles with effortless calm as they stroll out into the apocalypse. Raging infernos paint the skyline. Skyscrapers crumble in the distance. Terrified screams echo across the broken streets. Yet through the hellscape, the two walk forward completely unfazed. Backed by invincible S-rank godhood and the battle-hardened instincts of past timelines, they step deep into the chaos as the undisputed sovereigns of this fallen world. By the third month of the apocalypse, Alistair and Lynn finish building their private base on the outskirts of the city. Using his telekinesis to command D-rank, evolved zombies as tireless manual laborers. They construct a massive, impenetrable fortress, towering perimeter walls, a secluded, luxurious mansion, all tucked deep within a dense, protective forest. Throughout these peaceful months, Alistair relentlessly refines his god-tier arsenal. His telepathic control sharpens to full A-rank mastery. His daily blade training pushes his swordsmanship to the very brink of unlocking pure sword intent. Lynn spars with him every single day, perfecting her hand-to-hand lethal instincts alongside his blade. To strictly avoid triggering an accidental S-grade evaluation, Alistair deliberately ignores the shadowy mastermind orchestrating the global virus. He flatly rejects every single recruitment demand sent by the remnants of the human military. By the fourth month, that defiance finally sparks open war. Alistair's massive 8-kilometer mental radar pings violent, heavy movement, encircling their entire estate. The military has deployed a massive strike force, hundreds of heavily armed soldiers, a lethal platoon of recruited human awakeners, using Alistair's romantic bond with an evolved zombie as a righteous excuse. The military commanders aim to eradicate an uncontrollable powerhouse who holds absolute dominion over undead legions. Lynn approaches Alistair's side, having received his psychic scan of the incoming army. "Do you want me to handle them? They probably want to make an example out of you for being with a zombie." Alistair's expression remains completely detached. That's just their public justification. They see anyone who can command zombies and reject their authority as an existential threat to their rule. Lynn chuckles softly at the massive army surrounding their perimeter. It's amusing how they can be so arrogant and ambitious despite being so utterly weak. Alistair slowly draws the steel blade at his waist and sighs. They're like annoying insects. Disgusting, but very easy to squash. Alistair decides to end the military standoff immediately, extending his psychic domain across the full 8-kilometer radius. His invisible power slips effortlessly past every soldier's physical defenses. The crushing mental force wraps directly around their vitals. With a dramatic clench of his fist, Alistair mutters coldly, "Heartburst!" In a single instant, catastrophic internal hemorrhaging rips through every soldier and human awakener surrounding the perimeter. Their hearts rupture simultaneously inside their chests. Hundreds of lifeless corpses collapse onto the forest soil at the exact same second. Over the next 4 months, the couple dedicates every waking hour to brutal, focused training. Alistair expands his omniscient mental perception out to a massive 10 kilometers. Lynn develops a lethal aerial combat style, effortlessly launching herself through the sky by kicking off platforms of compressed air. By the 7th month, Alistair turns his attention toward microscopic precision, achieving total mastery over cellular manipulation. In the 8th month, an earth-shattering breakthrough rocks his cultivation. Alistair condenses true absolute sword intent. The razor-sharp conceptual aura allows him to slice through monstrous high-tier enemies using nothing more than a fragile tree branch. His cellular mastery evolves to the terrifying tier of forcefully ripping the zombie virus out of living infected hosts. His dark biological experiments prove that extracting the virus leaves targets as empty, soulless husks or completely shatters their sanity. Having harvested every ounce of research data, he disposes of the test subjects without hesitation. Meanwhile, wild, mutated zombies across the wasteland finally evolve to the A-rank late stage. They serve as the ultimate high-tier fuel. Systematically hunting down these apex monsters pushes Lynn across the threshold into the SC rank initial stage, and restores Alistair back to his full S-rank intermediate stage glory. With their kitchen pantry running completely dry, the god-tier couple steps out of the secluded compound together. Their goal, scavenge fresh food rations for Alistair, and harvest high-grade human meat to sustain Lin's royal evolution. Before stepping out, Alistair links his consciousness to several local zombies. They instantly form a 24/7 biological surveillance network around the perimeter of their estate. 8 months into the apocalypse, every convenience store in the city has been stripped completely bare. Alistair and Lin head straight toward the nearest major survivor stronghold. The fortress holds everything they could ever need. Endless stockpiles of non-perishable canned rations for Alistair, and a dense population of high-ranking human awakeners to feed Lin's royal viral hunger. Guards stationed atop the reinforced perimeter walls spot the infamous couple and freeze in terror. Alistair takes a step back and nods toward Lin with a smirk. "You just broke through to S rank. Test your new power on them." Lin gives a firm nod. She begins funneling colossal waves of dense viral energy directly into her right fist. The surrounding atmosphere warps and violently distorts under the crushing density. Sensing the apocalyptic pressure, the base's strongest powerhouse rushes to the front line to mount a desperate defense. Alistair recognizes the young man instantly. Sparks of violent electric current crackle around his frame. It is the exact same lightning user from Dormitory 172, the very awakener who severed his head in the first simulation. Desperate to interrupt Lin's earth-shattering charge, the youth hurls twin high-voltage lightning spears straight toward her chest. Alistair neutralizes the attack with a single thought. Using microscopic cellular-level telekinesis, he instantly unravels the viral bonds fueling the supernatural energy. The roaring lightning spears collapse into harmless static sparks and vanish into thin air. The surviving awakeners scramble in pure panic to escape. An invisible, impenetrable telekinetic dome slams down around the entire stronghold. In a fraction of a second, their fortified sanctuary becomes an inescapable slaughterhouse. Witnessing the cataclysmic vortex of pure kinetic force spinning around Lin's knuckles, Alistair chuckles wryly to himself. "Lin, isn't this overkill? You don't need your ultimate move just to crush a few ants." Lin unleashes the crushing energy accumulated within her fist. She drives a cataclysmic shockwave straight into the human fortress. The raw kinetic explosion obliterates the reinforced perimeter walls, ordinary survivors, and elite awakeners in a single, devastating stroke. The lightning user from Dormitory 172 is torn to shreds in a fraction of a second. Only his mangled torso remains intact, preserved inside Alistair's psychic barrier to serve as high-grade nourishment for Lin. Alistair calmly harvests the preserved flesh alongside crates of non-perishable canned rations. Over the following weeks, the relentless duo systematically raids major human strongholds across the region. Every military strike force deployed to eliminate them is turned into red mist on arrival. Almost overnight, their names become the most terrifying legends in the apocalyptic wasteland. Returning to their secluded estate, they pack the warehouse with long-term rations and fill the underground cold storage freezer with high-density meat. Realizing his widespread destruction has made an S-grade simulation score completely unavoidable, Alistair shifts his strategy entirely. He commits to maximizing his combat power to absolute godhood before tracking down the mysterious mastermind behind the virus. By the 9th month, his brutal cultivation triggers another terrifying evolution. His blade mastery ascends straight to gold-level Grandmaster Swordsman by fusing absolute sword intent with high-pressure blades of pressurized wind. He can effortlessly slice through equal-level defenses like wet paper. Simultaneously, his telekinesis reaches the microscopic realm, allowing him to manipulate matter down to the scale of an individual virus particle. Around the world, wild infected cross the threshold into the S-rank initial stage. This breakthrough births intelligent zombie kings, apex monsters capable of human speech and holding supreme psychic command over regional hordes. When one of these newly evolved zombie kings marches into their territory after annihilating Mark's outpost at the campus, Alistair severs the creature's head with a single, untraceable flick of wind, turning the surrounding territories into their personal hunting grounds. The couple tracks down and slaughters the remaining regional zombie kings one by harvesting their pure, ultra-dense viral cores. Alistair ascends to the terrifying S-rank late stage, while Lin rises to the S-rank intermediate stage. By the 10th month, intermediate-tier zombie kings emerge across the neighboring territories. Alistair and Lin methodically hunt them down one by one. The continuous harvest pushes Lin to the S-rank late stage, and elevates Alistair to the absolute threshold of a S-rank peak stage. In the 11th month, Alistair slams directly into an impenetrable bottleneck while attempting to break through to SS rank. Lin immediately steps forward, offering to sacrifice her own life once again. Alistair flatly refuses. Taking her life without first uncovering the true mastermind risks triggering uncontrollable grief, which could lead to an impulsive suicide before his mission is complete. Instead, they lock their sights onto an S-rank late-stage zombie king, ruling over a neighboring metropolis. Hovering high above the ruined skyline, they look down at pure horror. Tens of thousands of infected climb and stack their bodies into towering mountains of flesh just to reach them. Alistair brings his hands together in a single clap and unleashes his crushing psychic power. An invisible vortex vacuums the entire colossal horde into the open sky and condenses them into a single massive ball of pulverized meat and bone. Down below, only the zombie king remains. A stunning girl with waist-length black hair, piercing crimson eyes, and pale porcelain skin. Sensing their insurmountable godly pressure, she poses seductively and desperately begs to become Alistair's loyal servant. Alistair crushes her plea with a freezing, emotionless refusal. Driven to pure desperation, the girl coats her limbs in high-speed spinning wind blades. She launches herself straight upward into the air, screaming at the top of her lungs that she must survive at all costs to find her missing brother. Lin intercepts the aerial assault head-on. Empowered by Alistair's advanced viral breathing techniques, Lin's devastating strike shatters the girl's wind armor in an instant. The violent impact drives the girl down into the concrete, detonating a massive crater into the earth. Alistair smoothly descends from the sky and presses a razor-sharp blade of pressurized wind directly against the girl's exposed throat. Coughing up dark crimson blood, the wounded zombie king looks up into his eyes in utter, paralyzed shock. She trembles and whispers with her dying breath, "Bro, brother." Alistair shows zero hesitation after the zombie king calls him brother. He instantly conjures several jagged wind swords, impaling all four of her limbs and pinning her mercilessly to the shattered concrete. The girl looks up through streaming tears, desperate for a sliver of familial recognition. Alistair looks down and coldly identifies her as Alice Wright. She is indeed his long-lost sister from this world's background memories, separated from him 12 years ago. Yet, before she can finish her desperate plea, Alistair swings an untraceable blade of pressurized wind and cleanly severs her head. Lin wraps her arms around his waist from behind, softly asking why he executed his own flesh and blood without a second thought. Alistair replies with absolute detachment. 12 years apart turned her into nothing more than a complete stranger. In this ruined wasteland, Lin is the only living soul he truly cares for and trusts. Passing up Alice's viral essence himself, Alistair instructs Lin to harvest the high-grade remains. Consuming Alice's concentrated flesh propels Lin across her threshold straight into the S-rank peak stage. By the 12th month, the duo systematically eradicates every single high-tier threat across the entire continent. Scattered survivors revere and fear their names as the human king and the zombie queen, to finally shatter their rigid evolution bottlenecks. They cross the open seas to the Philippines, hunting down the planet's very first SS-rank initial stage zombie emperor. The towering zombie emperor senses their overwhelming arrival and roars, demanding they retreat immediately. It desperately tries to avoid a clash, knowing its newly ascended SS rank power remains volatile and completely unstable. Alistair sees right through the bluff in a split second, ignoring the monster's hollow attempts at a peaceful compromise. Alistair manifests tens of thousands of lethal whistling wind blades suspended across the entire sky. Behind him, Lin detonates the ground beneath her feet, surging forward with apocalyptic physical strength. Together, the two Apex S-rank sovereigns launch an all-out, earth-shattering assault against the zombie emperor. The brutal battle against the Philippines' zombie emperor rises for an entire day, suffocating the emperor's raging flames with total vacuum zones and unleashing his gold-grade grandmaster swordsmanship. Alistair moves in flawless synchronization with Lin. Together, their clash reduces the entire metropolitan coastline to shattered dust, finally bringing the towering calamity crashing down. Lin adamantly insists that Alistair consume the Emperor's core first. She points out that her power resets upon a timeline restart, whereas his permanent essence carries over. Alistair ingests the concentrated viral biomass, allowing his internal virus to refine the energy instantly. Within 30 minutes, the unbreakable bottleneck shatters. Alistair ascends as the world's very first SS rank initial stage transcendent. Departing the Philippines, the sovereign couple unleashes a worldwide campaign of total extermination. They sweep across continents, butchering ancient hordes and consuming high-tier viral cores. Upon tracking down a second zombie emperor, Alistair subdues the beast and feeds its essence directly to Lin, elevating her straight to the SS rank initial stage. By the 13th month, their scorched earth crusade drowns the globe in ash and blood. Billions of zombies and humans perish under their relentless advance. The entire human species plummets to a mere 1 million survivors, concentrated entirely within China. Interrogations and data recovered during the slaughter confirm the ultimate truth. The viral genesis originated here. Alistair smirks with dark amusement. So, the virus was made in China after all. Fitting. Having reached the terrifying SS rank peak stage side by side with Lin, Alistair rips through the clouds toward the Chinese mainland with absolute godlike confidence. Upon arrival, his omniscient mental radar sweeps the terrain. The remaining million survivors are nothing more than cybernetically modified test subjects wired into a centralized hive. The duo obliterates the puppet army in a matter of hours, pushing their planetary eradication rate to a staggering 9.99%. Tracing the cybernetic command telemetry deep underground, Alistair locates the mastermind's hidden fortress. Yet the moment they breach the facility's outer perimeter, high-frequency suppression arrays pulse invisible disruptor waves through the atmosphere. The advanced frequency instantly locks onto their biology, violently suppressing and dampening the SS rank zombie virus coursing within Alistair's veins. The invisible frequency waves crush Lin to the floor in an instant. Her body collapses into a violent comatose state under the extreme density of her own viral core. Before her consciousness fades into darkness, she mutters a faint, dying whisper, "Eat me." Understanding her final wish and knowing absolute power is required to slay the mastermind, Alistair unsheathes his steel blade. With a single painless strike, he ends Lin's life. He immediately absorbs her viral essence, refining the dense energy into every fiber of his being. The colossal surge catapults his baseline strength straight into the half-step SS rank. Though falling just short of a complete breakthrough, the immense evolution allows him to forcefully overpower the suppression waves, restoring his usable combat output to the SS rank initial stage. A deranged laugh echoes through the underground facility. A middle-aged man in a blood-stained lab coat materializes out of thin air right beside him, completely bypassing Alistair's mental radar. The scientist laughs maniacally, praising Alistair's resilience, revealing that Alice was merely designated as Subject 99, and openly declaring himself the mastermind of the global apocalypse. Alistair instantly reads the signature of his superpower, pure spatial teleportation at the SS rank late stage. Sensing lethal danger, Alistair erupts with a violent burst of omnidirectional wind repulsion. The shockwave blasts the scientist backward across the subterranean hall. The mastermind casually brushes off his coat, mocking the weakened output Alistair can muster beneath the suppression field. With a flick of his wrists, the scientist hurls a set of specialized alloy daggers. The blades vanish into thin air and materialize inches behind Alistair's spine. Twisting his body at impossible speeds, Alistair evades the ambush cleanly. The attack confirms the critical weakness. The enemy's power is strictly limited to targeted coordinate teleportation, rather than true, total spatial manipulation. Having dismantled the mastermind's trump card, Alistair tightens his grip around his hilt and charges forward with a cataclysmic, full-powered offensive. Alistair clashes violently against the mastermind, who reveals his true name as Yoon Ren. Despite his baseline power being violently suppressed to the SS rank initial stage by the facility's negation waves, Alistair matches the lunatic scientist blow for blow. Every time Alistair deploys his crushing telekinesis, suffocating wind barriers, or lethal sword intent, Yoon Ren effortlessly flickers away through coordinate teleportation. Over 2 brutal hours of unrelenting attrition, Alistair's depleted stamina reserves drag him toward a severe disadvantage. Having extracted every single drop of operational intelligence from the arrogant scientist, Alistair discards all self-preservation. he shifts his entire strategy into a ruthless, mutual slaughter. Trading lethal strikes with zero hesitation, Alistair cleanly severs both of Yunren's arms, paying the price with the total loss of his own physical eyesight. Yet blindness means nothing to an apex sovereign backed by a 10-kilometer mental perception network. Alistair presses the offensive without dropping tempo for a fraction of a second. Under the raw, intoxicating pressure of a true life-and-death clash, his final genetic bottleneck shatters to dust. A cataclysmic shockwave pulverizes the subterranean complex. Overpowering the suppression matrix through sheer absolute force, Alistair ascends as the world's very first S-rank initial stage god. Instead of breaking down in terror, Yunren erupts into hysterical, deranged laughter. Witnessing the ultimate pinnacle of biological evolution with his own eyes, the scientist declares his life's grand design fulfilled. He shuts down the useless suppression emitters and slams his thumb onto a hidden emergency detonator, flooding his own bloodstream with lethal neurotoxins to end his life on his own terms. As Yunren's lifeless body hits the concrete floor, a crisp, echoing chime resonates directly through Alistair's soul. The simulation officially concludes with the host surviving as the supreme entity. Achieving an undisputed, record-shattering S-grade simulation evaluation, the system awards Alistair all 5 rewards simultaneously: SSS rank, initial stage physical might, absolute refined mind control, centuries worth of lethal combat experience soaked in suffocating, bloodthirsty killing intent, and 3 permanent immutable talents: Remember Me, blue, Dual Awakener, gold, and Grandmaster Swordsman, gold. Integrating the colossal power instantly catapults his baseline strength in the real world straight into the 9th level transcendent realm. This supreme ascension places him far beyond ordinary mortals, easily matching the highest ranking academy principals across the nation. Yet Alistair keeps his pride firmly in check. He remains acutely aware of the ancient monsters lurking above him, legendary transcendent kings and mythical transcendent emperors whose absolute domains still possess the lethal force to obliterate him. He resolves to maintain a low profile, preparing the zombie world as an impenetrable planar sanctuary for himself and his parents should apocalyptic beasts ever overwhelm his current reality. A crisp system notification rings out, setting a strict 24-hour cooldown before his ultimate trial, the realistic full-dive simulation. Conquering the apocalyptic timeline with his physical body will grant him total ownership over the dimension as an undisputed world god. Backed by the unstoppable might of a true S-rank existence, Yunren's antivirus suppression waves will crumble into useless static. Far more importantly, he can finally step across reality to reunite with Lin and reward her eternal devotion. After resting through the morning, to fully stabilize his internal reserves, Alistair heads toward the neighborhood supermarket to restock his kitchen. Tucking his world-ending aura deep within his soul, he blends seamlessly into the bustling crowd, moving through the streets as nothing more than an ordinary student. Alistair finishes his shopping at the local supermarket, filling his bags with instant rations while savoring the fleeting peace. The moment he steps past the glass entrance, a deafening roar shatters the afternoon calm. A jagged oval-shaped dimensional rift rips open across the sky, dumping a colossal 10-meter-tall tentacle aberration directly onto the concrete structure. Sensing the crushing malice oozing from its flesh, Alistair gauges its strength in a fraction of a second. A 7th-level abyssal beast, roughly equal to an CS-rank zombie. The surrounding street dissolves into screams and stampeding crowds. Out of the chaos, a hot-blooded teenage girl charges straight toward the crumbling rubble, desperate to shield trapped civilians. Alistair tracks her path and shakes his head with cold disbelief. She is merely a fragile 3rd-level transcendent. Throwing herself into the jaws of a calamity 4 entire tiers above her pay grade is nothing short of pure suicide. With his 9th-level transcendent power, Alistair could reduce the monstrosity to red mist with a flick of his finger, yet he does not lift a single hand. Playing the hero grants him 0 tangible benefits while painting an enormous target on his back for government investigators and high-ranking watchdogs. Putting on a panicked, terrified grimace, Alistair clutches his grocery bags tightly and sprints alongside the screaming civilians like a defenseless mortal. Casting one last detached glance over his shoulder, he watches the reckless girl get mercilessly swatted from the air and brutalized beneath the thrashing mass of armored tentacles. Reaching his apartment completely untouched, Alistair double locks the heavy door and calmly unpacks his groceries onto the counter. The girl's foolish sacrifice provided the perfect smokescreen to slip away unnoticed. Seeing her swift demise only solidifies his unbreakable principle. In a world infested with monsters and hidden sovereigns, true survival belongs solely to those who embrace cold pragmatism, unyielding vigilance, and absolute shadow until they reign supreme over all creation. The system chime echoes in his mind, signaling that the full dive simulation for total world ownership has unlocked. Alistair confirms the prompt with a calm, yes. Real-world time freezes instantly into absolute stillness as the talent selection pool manifests before his eyes. Determined to rewrite history before his younger sister's abduction at age 6, Alistair carefully locks in his 3 optimal traits. Preschooler, blue, Shota Henshin, purple, and prodigy, gold. The system countdown strikes 0, and his consciousness dissolves into the timeline. Awakening inside a sunlit bedroom, Alistair glances down at his tiny 4-year-old hands. Beneath this fragile frame flows the terrifying reality of his true might. SSS rank, initial stage power, unyielding dual superpowers, gold-tier grandmaster swordsmanship, and lethal millisecond-sharp combat reflexes, all completely intact. Gazing out at the bustling skyline of a pre-apocalyptic world, he calculates his grand strategy. Tracking down and executing Yunren immediately would extinguish the viral catastrophe before it ever begins, safeguarding Alice from a horrific fate, though extinguishing the catastrophe outright could trigger unpredictable ripples across the plane's core laws. Scanning his resurfaced childhood memories, he notes that today marks his first day of preschool. With prodigy gold dominating his intellect, pretending to learn the alphabet alongside drooling toddlers is a useless waste of energy. Far more pressing is the dark reality lurking behind his household's finances. His parents are drowning beneath a crushing $1 million scam debt, a debt that his original timeline revealed vanished the moment Alice went missing. A cold, lethal aura flickers within his young eyes. If his biological parents truly sold his sister to Yunren's human experimentation syndicate to settle their own ledger, he will ensure both of them suffer a quiet, untraceable, and utterly fatal accident. A sharp knock at the door cuts through Alistair's thoughts. Opening it, he is greeted by his parents, Chris and July Wright, with a tiny, wide-eyed Alice clinging to July's side. Alistair firmly walls off his emotions, treating mortal family ties as dangerous vulnerabilities on his march toward absolute supremacy. The thought of tracking down a young Lynn Conway to build an early bond flickers through his mind. Yet safeguarding Alice and hunting down Yunren remain his primary objectives. Chris looks down at his 4-year-old and asks, "Son, are you ready to attend preschool?" Alistair shakes his head without a trace of hesitation. "Father, I am a prodigy. I don't need preschool." Chris laughs it off as childish arrogance and launches into a relentless lecture on humility and discipline. Having wiped out entire worlds and slaughtered billions across shattered timelines, Alistair's mental fortress doesn't even tremble. Every time Chris pauses to demand obedience, Alistair delivers the exact same cold, flat refusal. The exhausting standoff stretches across hours, draining multiple pitchers of water and lasting straight through dinner until Chris collapses into total mental defeat. They settle on an ultimatum. Alistair must ace a full high school-level examination next week to officially bypass his schooling. Lying in bed that night with a cold smirk, Alistair sorts through the hidden truths he harvested while quietly dismantling his father's psychic defenses during their argument. The $1 million fraudulent debt is already suffocating the household. Within 2 short years, desperation will push his parents over the edge, driving them to hand Alice over to Yunren's human experimentation ring, only for the mad scientist to execute them in a staged car accident right after. Alistair maps out an immediate countermeasure. He will quietly slip out into the city, showcase his artificial genius, and use his absolute mind control to puppet a wealthy, high-ranking patron into wiping the debt off the ledger for good. At 2 a.m, Alistair expands his mental perception across the sleeping metropolis. Pinpointing a localized human trafficking crew prowling the outer districts, he slips out of his second-story bedroom window in cartoonish pajamas. Strolling down the desolate, dimly lit pavement in rubber flip-flops, he puts on the flawless facade of a lost, terrified toddler. The predators swarm him in seconds. Their leader, flaunting a brutal buzz cut and a thick gold chain, runs a calculating eye over Alistair's striking features, gloating that high society bidders at an underground black market slave auction will easily drop $10 million for such a prize. When a burly thug clamps a rag soaked in industrial anesthetic over his nose and mouth, Alistair puts on an Oscar-worthy panic, kicking his tiny legs frantically before letting his head drop limp. The crew binds him tight with coarse ropes, shoves a heavy gag between his teeth, and hurls him into the cargo bed of an unmarked transport van. Resting against the vibrating floorboards, Alistair relaxes in absolute calm. His terrifying SSS rank constitution and refined viral biology instantly burn the chemical sedative down to harmless vapor before a single molecule reaches his bloodstream. Using his 10-kilometer mental radar to chart every turn the van takes toward the mountainous outskirts, he finds the sheer irony exquisite. Far from being prey, he has simply commandeered a team of disposable chauffeurs to ferry him straight into a gathering of corrupt, ultra-wealthy oligarchs, the exact demographic he plans to mentally rewrite to wipe his family's debt clean. The heavy tires screech to a halt outside a fortified, subterranean auction complex. Feigning deep unconsciousness beneath his ropes, Alistair prepares to turn the entire criminal underworld into his personal playground. The traffickers carry Alistair deep into an isolated forest, descending into a reinforced subterranean bunker concealed beneath the thick tree canopy. Stripping away his ropes, they fasten heavy alloy handcuffs around his tiny wrists and lock a solid steel collar around his neck. Treating him as their undisputed crown jewel, the captors seal him inside a spacious, velvet-lined private cage, while cramming 23 other terrified, abducted children into squalid, communal iron pens nearby. The moment the heavy steel doors seal shut and the armed guards clear the corridor, Alistair opens his eyes. Unbothered by the cold iron surrounding him, he reaches across the psychic ether to inspect the mental seed he secretly embedded within Alice before slipping out of the house. Acting as an imperceptible divine avatar, this psychic anchor allows him to monitor her vital signs across limitless distances, effortlessly erase or rewrite his parents' memories of his sudden absence, and project the cataclysmic weight of his SSS rank godhood directly through her body if a threat ever crosses her threshold. With Alice's safety completely absolute, Alistair has zero desire to rush back to an ordinary suburban household. Instead, this kidnapping serves as the ultimate untraceable springboard to construct his own shadow syndicate, puppet the world's most influential oligarchs, and construct an ironclad web to crush Yun Ren before the scientist even realizes the board is set. Glancing toward the adjacent cages, where dozens of bruised children sob in helpless terror, Alistair's expression remains as flat as carved stone. He feels neither an ounce of sympathy nor the slightest urge to play the righteous savior. Playing the heroic vigilante brings nothing but the tedious burden of civilian rescue, official interrogations, and unwanted babysitting, offering zero strategic return for his grand design. Discarding mortal ethics and arbitrary human laws, Alistair leans back against the iron bars in absolute serenity. In a reality governed purely by power, he marches entirely to his own cadence. So long as an operation serves his ambitions, fuels his entertainment, and shields the few who earn his loyalty, the rest of the world can burn into ash. A full week passes inside the subterranean bunker. Resting serenely within his cage, Alistair spends the quiet hours refining his mental mastery and imperceptibly converting microscopic viral energy into biological nutrients, subtly sustaining the malnourished children whom the captors had starved near death. Behind the scenes, he weaves a mind parasite into the core of each kidnapper's neural network, an imperceptible psychic trigger, engineered to violently rewrite their consciousness the exact moment he commands it. While he has no interest in playing a self-sacrificing martyr, he possesses zero qualms about liquidating human filth once their utility hits zero. The operation finally mobilizes. The traffickers haul the heavy cages into the back of an armored transport truck, embarking on a multi-hour drive toward an opulent 5-star luxury hotel, an exclusive front serving as an underground black market auction for the world's most corrupt billionaires. The moment the vehicle rumbles to a halt at the private delivery bay, Alistair decides the child act has officially run its course. With an effortless flick of telekinesis, the solid iron bars twist like dry twigs. His steel handcuffs shatter into powder, and the cloth gag disintegrates from his face. As the traffickers pull the heavy cargo doors wide open, Alistair detonates every single psychic parasite in unison. The entire gang freezes mid-motion. The sadistic sneers vanish from their faces as their pupils glaze over in absolute veneration. Dropping hard onto the cold asphalt, the traffickers press their foreheads to the ground in complete submission, awaiting his decree. Alistair gazes down at them with freezing detachment. "Kill yourselves!" Without a millisecond of hesitation, the thralls draw their sidearms and end their own lives on the spot. To spare the surviving children from lingering trauma, Alistair sweeps a calming psychic pulse through the cargo hold, painlessly wiping away every memory of the abduction. He slips them into a restorative slumber, saturating their biological systems with high-density viral energy capable of sustaining them for a month without a drop of food or water. Stepping over the blood-stained pavement in his pajamas, Alistair casually strolls toward the lavish main entrance of the fortified hotel. As his small silhouette nears the towering gilded gates, the heavily armed security contractors drop their rifles, falling to their knees in thunderous synchronization. "Boss, all of your loyal subordinates are gathered inside the Grand Hall. We all await your command." Alistair floats effortlessly onto the second floor of the luxury hotel, descending straight onto the center of the illuminated auction stage in his 4-year-old body. The moment his small feet touch the polished wood, the entire hall reacts in unison. Every millionaire, billionaire, and corrupt oligarch leaps from their velvet seats, dropping to their knees and bowing their heads to the floor in absolute unconditional submission. Finding the sheer absurdity entertaining, Alistair delivers his first command with a cold smirk. "Slap yourselves 3 times and bark like dogs." Without a millisecond of hesitation or the slightest shred of dignity, the titans of industry obey immediately. Loud, echoing slaps ring through the opulent hall, followed by humiliating barks. Laughing softly at the pathetic sight, Alistair issues his next mandate. He commands every single puppet to take out their phones and summon their most influential business partners, corrupt banking executives, and top-tier political allies directly to the venue to rapidly multiply his web of shadow control. As the frantic magnates scramble to make calls, Alistair's brief amusement quickly fades into cold boredom. Standing at the absolute apex of the world feels hollow without Lin standing faithfully at his side. Unlike the standard simulations where death was merely a stepping stone for another timeline reset, this realistic full-dive simulation carries absolute permanence. If Lin dies in this reality, she is lost forever. Dredging up Lin's past timeline memories, he recalls the suffocating reality of her childhood. Her narcissistic parents had coldly dictated every breath she took, grooming her as a high society trophy tool rather than treating her as their child. A lethal glint flashes in Alistair's eyes. He resolves to locate her immediately, quietly erase her abusive parents from the equation, and bring her into his own fold. As dozens of incoming high-ranking officials and corporate elites flood through the entrance and fall under his psychic web, Alistair broadcasts a detailed mental imprint of Lin Conway across the minds of every puppet in the room. His voice echoes in their minds with absolute authority. Mobilize every intelligence asset, surveillance satellite, and law enforcement database you control. Locate Lin Conway immediately. Hovering invisibly above the manicured suburban neighborhood, Alistair bends the surrounding light with micro-air currents to remain completely imperceptible. Down below, the front door of a modern 2-story home swings open. A polished couple in their 30s steps out into the morning sunlight, accompanied by a small 4-year-old girl with striking golden hair and deep crimson eyes, the child form of his future wife, Lin Conway. Alistair wastes no time with dramatic confrontations. Reaching into the street with a whisper of psychic power, he overrides the nervous system of a passing delivery truck driver. The heavy vehicle swerves sharply, rocketing straight onto the sidewalk and slamming violently into Lin's abusive parents the exact second they step forward. The catastrophic impact crushes them on the spot, splattering crimson across the pavement, while leaving the young Lin physically untouched just inches away. As the toddler freezes in apparent shock before the violent scene, Alistair drifts down from the sky, landing lightly beside her. Rather than letting her linger in the confusion of a child's mind, he instantly activates his Remember Me blue talent. The dazed blankness in Lin's crimson eyes shatters in a fraction of a second. Her gaze sharpens with terrifying, resolute clarity as 18 years of apocalyptic survival, high-tier combat instincts, and deep devotion flood back into her consciousness. Glancing past the mangled remains of her parents without a flicker of remorse, Lin turns toward Alistair and smiles softly. "Thank you, Alistair. If you hadn't done it, I wouldn't have had the resolve to kill them myself." The two 4-year-olds, harboring the cold minds and battle-hardened souls of apex predators, sit calmly side by side on the concrete curb next to the blood-stained asphalt. Around them, an invisible psychic deflection field casually redirects all passing traffic and pedestrians away, creating an untouched bubble of absolute silence. Lin leans her head gently against his shoulder, asking how he managed to arrive years before the viral outbreak and whether he ultimately brought down the mastermind. Alistair reassures her with quiet warmth, confirming that her sacrifice in the previous timeline was not in vain, and that he personally tore Yunren apart. He explains his current operation, mapping out the mastermind's early research facilities while systematically turning the world's billionaires, corporate conglomerates, and political leaders into his personal puppets. Lin closes her eyes against the morning breeze and asks softly, "What about Alice? Have you made up your mind to save her?" Alistair falls quiet, his sharp crimson eyes narrowing as his thoughts shift toward the sister who called him brother at the edge of death. Alistair reassures Lin that a psychic mind seed is already rooted deep within Alice's subconscious, granting him continuous monitoring and the power to intervene the instant a threat emerges. Relieved that his lethal pragmatism hasn't completely erased his protective instincts, Lin smiles warmly, glad to see his humanity still intact beneath his godlike power. A secure encrypted phone call breaks their quiet moment. One of Alistair's puppet subordinates reports a massive breakthrough. Intelligence operatives have pinpointed the location of a 22-year-old Yunren. The young researcher is currently operating as a key asset inside an enigmatic shadow faction known as the Cloud Sect. Alistair commands his asset to transmit the full classified dossier immediately, while ordering his shadow syndicate to keep infiltrating global political cabinets and military high commands. Right before Alistair disconnects, he overhears the agent muttering an existential lament over the line, wondering how their 4-year-old sovereign already locked down a loyal partner while he remains completely single at 35. Alistair rolls his eyes with dry amusement and hangs up. Lin gently pats his back with a mischievous smirk, teasing him for moving with extreme military caution when his SSSS rank output could easily subjugate the entire planet before sunset. Alistair counters without hesitation, making it clear that her absolute survival takes priority over reckless world conquest. Reckless butterfly effects could have easily snuffed out her timeline before he could reach her. Moved by his protective devotion, Lin catches him off guard, tackling him onto the grass and pulling him into a passionate kiss. But when her playful hands start getting far too adventurous, Alistair's battle-hardened composure instantly shatters into sheer panic. He frantically shoves her away, frantically reminding her that indulging in any form of physical intimacy while physically locked in the bodies of 4-year-old toddlers is completely out of the question until they naturally age up. Lin pouts with crossed arms, playfully berating him as a hopeless prude. Alistair merely shrugs off her complaints with total nonchalance, swiftly changing the subject and locking their focus back onto tracking the Cloud Sect and wiping Yunren off the face of the earth. 22-year-old Yunren sits quietly in the main cafeteria of the Cloud Sect's subterranean facility, sipping black coffee while reviewing advanced molecular biology textbooks during his lunch break. Without a flicker of warning, 2 4-year-old toddlers with piercing crimson eyes materialize directly on the plastic chairs opposite his table. Ignoring the stunned researcher, Alistair and Lin casually compare chronological notes in front of him, deducing that the prototype viral strain is already under active cultivation, a full 14 years prior to the global collapse. Before breaching the compound, Alistair had channeled a fraction of his refined viral essence into Lin, effortlessly elevating her back to the terrifying tier of an SS rank zombie emperor while keeping his own SSS rank Supreme Foundation intact. Around their booth, Alistair deploys an impenetrable psychic deflection matrix. Passing laboratory staff and armed guards stroll by just inches away, completely blind to the anomaly, and unable to register a single decibel of their dialogue. As an analytical genius, Yunren tracks their instantaneous spatial manifestation and total sensory cloaking. His mind races through calculations, quickly deducing that these two anomalous children are transcendent beings from the future, walking avatars empowered by the absolute, perfected apex of the very biological agent his faction is attempting to engineer. Alistair effortlessly plucks the scientist's deductions straight from his neural pathways and lets out an amused smirk. He acknowledges that while the Cloud Sect may have discovered the raw pathogen, Yunren was the sole visionary destined to evolve it into a world-ending phenomenon. He leans forward on his tiny elbows, playfully asking the young researcher how it feels to gaze upon the ultimate masterpieces of his life's work, sitting right across his lunch table. Recognizing the insurmountable gulf in absolute power and understanding his existence hangs entirely on the whims of the toddler before him, the defenseless scientist gently places his textbook onto the table. Yunren lets out a long, weary breath and asks with grim resignation, "What in the world did my future self do to make the two of you travel back across time just to hunt me down for revenge?" Alistair looks down at the young scientist and delivers his judgment with bone-chilling composure. Yunren's future self forced Lin into a fatal sacrifice, making absolute retribution entirely non-negotiable. Drifting upward into the air, Alistair brings his small foot crashing down onto the back of Yunren's head. The brutal impact pins the researcher's face against the cafeteria table until hairline fractures spiderweb across the wood, before Alistair ruthlessly hoists him up by a fistful of hair, leaving him dangling helplessly off the ground. Turning to Lin, Alistair casually offers her the floor to vent her past grievances. Lin shakes her head with cold detachment, pointing out that an instant death is far too merciful. Keeping him fully conscious while working him to the bone as an eternal research slave is a far sweeter torment. Alistair smirks in complete agreement, opting to exploit the young prodigy's scientific intellect rather than throw it away. Manipulating viral matter at the microscopic scale, Alistair channels a concentrated surge of refined viral essence straight into Yunren's biology. The potent injection forces an instant biological evolution, elevating the frail scientist directly into an A-rank late-stage transcendent. To guarantee absolute dominion, Alistair weaves a specialized mind bug into the core of the researcher's neural architecture. Functioning as an agonizing psychic shock collar, the parasite leaves Yunren's brilliant intellect and personality completely functional, but is programmed to detonate excruciating, soul-rending neurological torture the millisecond he entertains a single impulse of betrayal, disobedience, or suicide. Alistair hurls the gasping young man back onto his seat, declaring him a lifetime corporate asset. Yet instead of shrinking back in terror, the young, power-hungry Yunren becomes instantly intoxicated by the titanic A-rank energy flooding his veins. Realizing this monstrous power places him at the undisputed summit of the modern world and grants him the strength to effortlessly purge the Cloud Sect's ruling brass. A manic grin stretches across his face. Yunren drops directly to his knees before the 4-year-old sovereign, bowing his forehead to the linoleum with fanatical zeal as he enthusiastically swears his eternal loyalty as a disposable pawn. Yunren was far too intelligent not to recognize the absolute reality of his situation. He understood that the mind bug embedded in his brain made even the thought of defiance a death sentence, and that the godlike power coursing through his veins could be ripped away by Alistair just as effortlessly as it was granted. In truth, receiving a refined A-rank late-stage viral foundation, an evolutionary catalyst infinitely superior to the crude, volatile prototypes the Cloud Sect had spent decades fumbling with, felt like an overwhelming reward. Pure research was his sole obsession, and this immense strength guaranteed he could sweep aside the organization's bureaucratic fossils without breaking a sweat. Alistair laid down his non-negotiable terms. Yunren was to execute the current leadership immediately and assume command of the Cloud Sect as a shadow proxy. Furthermore, all human experimentation on innocent civilians and children was banned on the spot. Future test subjects would consist strictly of death row convicts and violent syndicates funneled directly through Alistair's expanding underworld network. Yunren bowed eagerly, accepting every condition without a second thought. The moment Alistair and Lin dissolved into thin air, the young scientist let out a long, exhaled breath. Straightening his lab coat, he cast a freezing, superior glance over the cafeteria staff before vanishing into thin air, teleporting directly into the Supreme Leader's executive office to initiate the bloody purge. Meanwhile, a world away from subterranean conspiracies, Alistair and Lynn strolled along a sunlit pedestrian avenue. Walking hand in hand in their 4-year-old forms, they casually licked ice cream cones under the pristine blue sky, savoring a tranquil warmth they had never experienced across centuries of apocalyptic warfare. Completely liberated from the shadow of her abusive parents, Lynn's crimson eyes sparkled as she spotted a vibrant gaming arcade across the street. She tugged excitedly on Alistair's sleeve, demanding they go inside to play. When Alistair patted his small pockets and admitted with a flat expression that he had forgotten to bring physical cash, Lynn burst into a mischievous giggle. She tilted her head, playfully teasing him about how a ruthless sovereign who orchestrated planetary genocide and forced the world's wealthiest oligarchs onto their knees was suddenly having moral reservations about mentally overriding a cashier for a handful of plastic tokens. Completely dismantled by her sharp wit, Alistair let out a helpless, wry chuckle. Giving in without another word, he led Lynn through the front doors, prepared to fulfill an old childhood fantasy of running an entire arcade on an unlimited psychic tab. Alistair steps up to the token counter and sends a subtle psychic ripple across the booth. The cashier mechanically empties the dispensers, handing over mountains of brass coins with a blank smile, while a faint memory wipe wave glides over nearby patrons, erasing every trace of curiosity. Stuffing his small pockets until they bulge and passing an overflowing pouch to Lynn, Alistair smirks with pride, boasting about his effortless, god-tier heist. Lynn merely rolls her eyes with an amused snicker. Scanning the neon-lit hall of flashing monitors and roaring speakers, Lynn points toward the machines and lays down the stakes of their showdown. If Alistair loses, he has to walk around wearing bright red lipstick. If Lynn loses, she has to cross-dress in sharp men's clothes. To lock him in, she hits him with weaponized puppy dog eyes, her crimson gaze practically glowing with innocent charm. Completely ambushed by her tactical cuteness, Alistair violently accelerates his cognitive processing to buy time, dragging the entire arcade into near-frozen slow motion. But Lynn's SS rank perception effortlessly matches his pace. Leaning across the slowed air currents, she whispers softly into his ear, pointing out that since they are physically trapped in 4-year-old frames, a smear of lipstick won't damage his non-existent adult dignity anyway. Before he can fire back with a razor-sharp counter, Lynn leans in and gives his earlobe a sharp, playful nibble, leaving the Supreme Sovereign utterly frozen in place. Snapping out of the daze and narrowing his eyes at her open provocation, Alistair lays out his counter-demand. When he wins, he claims a tight hug, a kiss, and a warm shared bath. Lynn's grin widens as she seals the bet without a second thought, dragging him straight toward the arcade battleground. Alistair leads Lynn straight to the whack-a-mole station for their opening clash, magnanimously offering her a string of practice rounds since it marks her very first time inside an arcade. The instant the buzzer sounds, Lynn's SS rank reflexes detonate into pure supersonic motion. Her tiny hands blur into a storm of violent afterimages. Plastic moles are pulverized the microsecond their mechanisms trigger, battered back down before their heads can even breach the surface. By the time the 60-second timer runs out, the kinetic shockwaves have completely fried the motherboard. Sparks sputter from the coin slot as the digital scoring display glitches out and dies. Lynn offers a sheepish, innocent giggle. Alistair simply bursts out laughing and gracefully concedes the point, completely unbothered, since his subtle psychic veil keeps the surrounding crowd and arcade staff blissfully oblivious to the ruined hardware. For the next several hours, the two absolute apex predators run wild across the floor. The hypnotized cashier dutifully marches over every 10 minutes, delivering fresh, towering trays of brass tokens straight to their hands. Fusing Lynn's monstrous physical agility with Alistair's razor-sharp gamer intuition, they tear through basketball shootouts, air hockey tables, and rhythm stages. Towering ribbons of redemption tickets spill out across the linoleum, piling up in colorful mountains around their feet. The high-stakes bed of lipstick and suits dissolves into thin air as both let their hardened guard down. Fully surrendering to the pure, uninhibited joy of an innocent childhood they had been denied across centuries of bloodshed. Eventually, they come to a halt before the very last attraction left standing, the notorious, glowing, plushy claw machine. Dredging up bitter mortal memories of past-life crane games that shamelessly scammed his allowance without dropping a single doll, Alistair's eyes narrow with razor focus. He slides a gleaming brass token into the slot, takes firm hold of the joystick, and flashes Lin a cocky, confident smirk. "Watch and learn!" Aiming to sweep the glass cabinet clean, Alistair immediately spots the scam. The plushies are jammed together at impossible angles to guarantee a loss. Rather than playing fair against a rigged system, he taps into his evolved absolute mind, the ascended form of his psychic authority, capable of projecting virtually any Esper discipline. Channeling a thread of viral essence straight into the internal circuitry, Alistair executes technokinesis to rewrite the core software on the fly. He dials the claw's grip strength and drop precision to the absolute maximum, smoothly steering the crane directly over an adorable bunny plush. The metal claw snaps shut with mechanical perfection, hoisting the toy and dropping it cleanly down the collection chute. Spotting the faint viral residue, Lin calls him out for cheating in a heartbeat. Alistair counters with an immediate wager. If she can guess the exact superpower he used, she can pick any plushie in the machine as her prize. Telekinesis, Lin guesses without missing a beat. Smirking behind a pair of glowing spectacles crafted from condensed air and bent light, Alistair corrects her with theatrical pride. He reveals that he deployed refined technokinesis to hack the electronic board rather than brute-forcing the toy with raw psychic grip. Even so, he generously counts her attempt and asks which plushie she wants to claim. "All of it," Lin answers without blinking. Refusing to waste precious minutes picking the cabinet clean one toy at a time, Alistair coats his fingertips in razor-sharp sword intent. With an untraceable swipe, he slices through the reinforced plexiglass top panel. A violent telekinetic vortex erupts inside, vacuuming every single plushie out of the cabinet in a swirling storm of fabric. He weaves a massive weightless sack out of compressed air currents, packs the entire mountain of plushies inside, and presents the colossal prize to Lin. Her crimson eyes beam with genuine delight as she pulls him into a tight, joyful hug. Alistair and Lin wrapped up their arcade adventure and carried their date across the city, spending the afternoon in movie theaters and riding attractions at the amusement park until night fell. Throughout their trip, Alistair used technokinesis to wipe all surveillance footage and erase the memories of any pedestrians who crossed their path. With the bodies and blood of Lin's abusive parents completely cleaned up by his syndicate subordinates, the two returned to her empty house, filling the living room with towering piles of one plushies and souvenirs. After taking a warm bath together, it came time to settle their arcade wager. Lin upheld her end first, dressing up in oversized men's clothing, consisting of a hoodie and trousers. She then pulled out a cosmetic kit and handed Alistair a tube of lipstick, making sure he couldn't back out. Swallowing his pride to keep his promise and make Lin happy, Alistair opened the tube and carefully applied the red color to his lips. Lin giggled at his goofy, circus-like appearance before using a handkerchief to gently wipe it away, affectionately complimenting his handsome looks. With the entire house to themselves in their 4-year-old forms, they spent the rest of the night playing online video games before falling asleep around midnight. A few hours later, a sudden distress signal from the psychic mind seed inside. Alice snapped Alistair wide awake. Gazing coldly in the direction of his family home, Alistair realized that his father, desperate over his massive debts, had already moved to sell young Alice away. Alistair tracks the psychic distress signals rippling through the mind seed, uncovering the full depth of his father's depravity. Crushed beneath soaring gambling debts, Chris had sold 2-year-old Alice off to an underground human trafficking ring to balance his ledger. When Lin turns to him and asks why he didn't simply clear the $1 million scam balance with a single transfer from his vast banking network, Alistair shakes his head with cold pragmatism. Bailing out a degenerate gambler only feeds the cycle. He deliberately used the financial pressure as the ultimate litmus test, exposing their parents as utterly unfit, reckless guardians once and for all. Leaving his physical body under Lin's watchful guard, Alistair triggers the psychic conduit. A split fraction of his divine consciousness, alongside a torrent of his SSSS rank supreme power, crosses the urban sprawl and surges straight into 2-year-old Alice's tiny frame. Inside the speeding syndicate transport, a masked trafficker unlatches the heavy cargo container to inspect the caged toddlers. In a fraction of a second, an invisible pressurized blade of wind whistles through the dark, severing the man's head from his shoulders before he can even blink. Before pure panic can erupt inside the container, Alice sweeps a soothing psychic wave across the hold, sinking every captive child into a tranquil, dreamless sleep and completely erasing every trace of the abduction from their minds. With an effortless flex of telekinetic force, the reinforced iron cage snaps like brittle twigs. Stepping out onto the dark highway, the possessed toddler gestures toward the surrounding sentries. Lethal arcs of compressed air whistle through the night, slicing off the guard's hands at the wrists before a single finger can touch a trigger. Scooping up a fallen burner phone, she dials emergency dispatch, broadcasting the exact coordinates of the trafficking ring directly to the police. Bending ambient light to cloak herself in absolute invisibility, Alice soars through the night sky, streaking straight back toward Lynn's estate. The microsecond Lynn swings open the front door, Alistair severs the psychic link. His divine presence recedes, and the exhausted toddler collapses gently into Lynn's waiting arms. His full consciousness snaps cleanly back into his primary body on the couch. Alistair maps out his final judgment with icy detachment. Unlike the reset-friendly simulations, death in this realistic full-dive reality carries absolute permanent finality. Though disgusted by his father's ruthless betrayal, he chooses to spare their mortal lives, deciding instead on complete psychological severance, permanently wiping every single memory of ever having given birth to children from both parents' minds. To ensure Alice never suffers abandonment trauma or longs for the parents who sold her like livestock, Alistair steps up to his sleeping sister. Reaching out with a gentle touch, he prepares to activate Remember Me, Blue, unlocking her 18 years of past timeline memories so she can awaken with full adult clarity, seasoned wisdom, and an unbreakable bond with her true family.